Over to our guest who remains on the broadcast with us, Mr. Gupta. Thank you so much for staying with us here at Mirror Now. What I wanted to ask you is, do you think the opposition's point is valid? The EC has said no elections until after the polls. The opposition has raised one nation, one election, saying if we can't do it now, how are we going to be able to do it in 2029 when we bring in one nation, one election?
Well, good afternoon, Aisha. Very happy to be on your show. Look, there are two things that the opposition is confusing. One is the number of phases, and one is one nation, one election. When we say one nation, one election, we're talking about simultaneous elections for the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies. When we're talking about the number of phases, we are talking about the distribution of constituencies, the Lok Sabha constituencies in this case, when it comes to voting. So let's assume in 2029, you do end up with a one nation, one election formula. You'll still have multiple phases for elections. It's not possible that 98 crore voters for Lok Sabha alone, and I'm not even talking about the people who are going to also vote in the state assemblies, because that's going to be a separate set of voters, though concurrent. But you cannot have them voting on a single day or even in three phases. Look at the logistics. First part is the logistics of getting the EVMs and the people to the polling centers. The second part of the logistics is getting them out of it and moving them to the next center and to the counting booths and everything. So it's a very, very big exercise. It's a very elaborate exercise. So when the opposition complains that, look, this is a 7-phase election, which was also the case in 2019, which was 9-phase in 2014, I really don't understand what they're complaining about. Because if you're talking about one nation, one election, they were rejecting that idea. Let's be very clear about it. They were rejecting that idea 6 months ago. Suddenly, they're confusing a very different idea to something that is more from an operational and an administration perspective. It's really appalling to see them confused to it's apples and oranges, basically.
That's interesting, apples and oranges. Mr. Gupta, stay with us. We're just going to listen in to some very important voices from Jammu and Kashmir, then we'll come back to you.
Well, it's disheartening. On one side, the government of India and the Prime Minister himself wanted one nation, one election. 4 states, they're holding state elections as well as parliamentary elections. Why is this state being denied? And every party, whether it's BJP, whether it's other parties, everybody wanted elections. What is the reason? If they say the security is the reason, I don't think so. Then how is it that security is all right for parliamentary election and not for the state elections?
Shocking, but that was expected. They will have no polls in J&K. सरकार इनके मन मर्जी से चलती है, ना कानून का कोई मतलब है, ना कानून का कोई पालन है, शहंशाही है इस देश में.
All right, we're crossing back over to Mr. Tushar Gupta, who remains with us on the broadcast. Mr. Gupta, you just listened into also what Farooq Abdullah had to say. He didn't seem to think that security was a good enough reason or even the correct reason that the Election Commission is giving. Now, interestingly, do you see Mehbooba Mufti or Farooq Abdullah coming back into power in Jammu and Kashmir? What do you think the people of the valley really want at this point?
Aisha, I would have to narrate you some tales from my travel to Kashmir in 2021 when we were just coming out of COVID and the revocation of Article 370 was still fresh in the minds of the people there. One distinction that has happened in Kashmir after 2019 is that there is no political lobby that is encouraging the conflict economy. If you go back to 2016-17, even when there was a PDP-BJP government, you remember how Mehbooba Mufti used to ask for lenience for stone pelters to the government. How Farooq Abdullah used to say that, let it be, these are stone pelters, they're just trying to make some money. There was an entire lobby that used to encourage the conflict economy, and there was no signs of socio-economic progress. Imagine there are minorities within Jammu and Kashmir also, people we never heard about in the 70 years, people we never read about, Gujars and Bakarwals, for instance. These are the tribal people from the mountains. And in Jammu now, in Katra, if you go, these communities are now using Ayushman Bharat to get elaborate bone replacement, hip replacement surgeries done, knee replacement surgeries done. So people at the end of the day, be it a Jammu or Kashmir, be it an Arunachal, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, the economic situation may vary, but the aspirations remain the same, that they want socio-economic progress. They want their children to be able to go to school, colleges, get education, get jobs. So what has happened after 2019, the new political push is towards investments, towards economic progress. You see how tourism is booming after COVID. So the locals also want political stability. They do not want shutdowns anymore. They do not want this threat of terror attacks anymore. They don't want a Burhan Wani in the lobby. They want a Narendra Modi who can give them a guarantee of significant socio-economic progress. And that's what the people say. And if you go to the internal parts of Kashmir, let's say in Uri, which is quite close to the LOC, you go to Pulwama, you go to areas like Hazratbal, they're not even talking about 370. They were not talking about it then. All they want is access. They want to export their agri-produce. They want to export their handicrafts. They just want to be able to make money, have their children, have their families safe, and just, live a normal life like rest of us do in the rest parts of the country.